Welcome back. Credit management practices across UAE companies are still evolving as firms have previously focused on sales performance. So how can companies look to implement new strategies to overcome their debt management? And how can creditors monitor their debtors abroad? Well, to discuss this, we're joined by Andy Yiacoumi, Business Development Manager for Deckle Debt Collections, LLC. Welcome to the show today.
Hi, Laura. Thank you.
So give us an overview of debt management here in the UAE.
Okay, well, generally there's a lack of maturity in the market. There's been so much focus in the past on sales. So the whole area of credit management is actually very new for a lot of companies here. So one of the things that we're sort of looking at the moment is sort of helping our clients, and I'm doing a lot of sort of, if you like, consultancy to actually sort of help them to implement a whole series of procedures. And within those procedures, we obviously add our services in there as well. And then we've basically effectively got a credit management solution, and that will help them from the beginning of the process right through to the end of the process, so to say. So we've not only got the preventive measures in place, but we've also got the curative measures in place. In terms of an example, we would, for argument's sake, we would take on board an application from which a client is sort of looking at with their client or potential new client. There would be a series of various documents that will be obtained as well from the potential new client. Right. And then there will be a whole sort of internal assessment which would happen. And along with that, there will be some form of a commercial credit report as well, which will be obtained through Deckle. And then once all of that has been done, the assessment is then sort of done internally, and they will make a decision. And then they will say, yes, it's on a cash basis, or it will be certain credit terms with a maximum credit limit and what have you. And that's essentially the start of the approval process or the decline, obviously depending on what type of client it is. So that's the way it would sort of start. Right now, it's still quite new for a lot of companies. And I've actually noticed as well that even some companies which are sort of well known in sort of other parts of the world, who have actually been here for a while, yet they don't seem to follow the same processes that you have obtained, you've had abroad.
Right.
So even with those companies, it's sort of a learning curve even for them as well. And I think like we've got to that stage now where sales have been hit really, really hard, and the market's suffering.
So people are realising now exactly the sort of mistakes made, I suppose.
Absolutely, because so there was no assessment before, and it was sign on the dotted line, there's the goods or here's the services, and then later on they're chasing, not getting paid. And now they're saying, oh my God, we've got all these debtors that are not paying, what do we do? And so, it's obviously that the market's quite tough at the moment, yeah. But at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, to obviously help companies get out of that. And I say, get the process right from the beginning, and hopefully then minimise the problems later on down the line, because obviously coming to me, when you've got the serious problems, it's much harder to deal with. Definitely. If you come to me from the beginning and we put the right procedures in place, then we've got a happy client at the end of the day.
Put the right structure in, and it's all go from there.
Absolutely.
So in terms of companies, I mean, this covers every single type of industry, does it? Is that right?
It's literally for everybody and anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we're working across all sectors and industries. We work, well, anything from the hotel industry, IT, car hire, lease. We work with building material suppliers, jewellery suppliers, you name it.
Anything, wow.
Anything and everybody.
Yeah.
Dubai is sort of the regional hub for a lot of business, so we could be dealing with potentially anybody, and it's a great market. I mean, it's a lot of fun for people like myself. You just get to work with so many different types of clients, and but you come across different problems for different groups at the end of the day. And right now, my main focus, one of the focuses, and there was a question that I think was to do with the fact that we've got sort of clients who sort of have these problems, and we're saying, well, how can we tackle it on a wider scale?
Exactly. So what should individuals do exactly? What's the actual path they should try and go down?
Well, what we can do is, I'm attacking certain groups at the moment, because we've got a good cross section of, for argument's sake, the hotel industry, we've got hordes of clients. So what we're trying to do now is sort of go to the whole group and actually say, right, if we can have sort of a cooperation across the board, then we can catch these rogue companies who are there to do one thing, and that's to take credit from one, go to the limit, and then move on to another, and then move on to another. And in the meantime, people are obviously hurting because they've left it, the hotel's got this huge debt that's been run up and they're not getting paid, whilst the client's moved on to another hotel, and he's obviously abusing them as well. So if we can capture sort of large groups, then we can share information across the board, which means that when somebody new comes along and says, I'd like to open a corporate account with you, we do a proper check, we do the assessment, as we'd previously discussed, and hopefully they're going to be caught out and say, I'm sorry, but I can't work with you. I can work with you on a cash basis, but I certainly can't give you credit.
Yeah.
So, there are many ways of tackling things, but it takes cooperation on a wider scale, because sometimes you can feel very, very lonely when you're one company on your own.
Yeah, you're quite vulnerable, aren't you? Exactly.
Absolutely.
And it could be the be-all and end-all, really, couldn't
absolutely.
it? So in terms of individuals, what
Yes.
should they do if they fall into bad debt then? What's the sort of main thing that they should do?
Right. I receive quite a lot of calls on this sort of fairly regularly, and I've been in the financial industry for quite a long time, and I would say something very simply. Please don't hide if you've got a problem. You need to face it, because at the end of the day, the longer that you leave that problem outstanding, the worse it will get.
Right.
Now, I'm sure any bank that's owed, whether it be a credit card or some sort of loan that they've defaulted on, whether it be a house loan or just an overdraft, if you go back to the bank and you sit there and you tell them realistically what your income is and what your expenditure is and come up with a proper plan, and then you actually stick to that plan, the banks will listen to you. I mean, there are whole departments now that the banks have opened up, because they also have a lot of problems to deal with as well.
Of course, yeah. So, it's getting rid of that fear, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can't bury your head in the sand.
Exactly.
You have to deal with it,
Yeah.
because, debt is debt at the end of the day, and the longer it's outstanding, the larger the debt will become. So you have to face it, and the banks will listen, because you're not on your own. There's a lot of other people out there who've got exactly the same problem. So you just get in there, you talk, and you'll come to some agreement which is acceptable on both sides, and then you stick to it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully everything will be settled over a period of time, whether that be a year, 2, 3 years, whatever. Obviously, it depends on the amount that's outstanding and your ability to pay back as well. You have to be realistic at the end of the day, because the last thing that you want is 6 months down the line, you're back to square one because you can't afford to repay based upon that original, agreement with the bank.
Right.
So that's my main advice, really, for any individual with a debt problem.
So it's nipping it in the bud as soon as possible there, definitely.
Without doubt.
So what are the laws surrounding sort of claiming debts from abroad? I mean, what can companies do should their debtors flee the country?
Again, this is something that's happening quite regularly, and it's sort of slowed down now, but I'd say in that sort of initial 1 to 2 years before, it was a big problem. And one of the things I'm trying to educate my clients on, again, is when there are foreign shareholders involved in any company, is to ensure that when they obtain when the client is actually trying to sort of open an account with you and gain credit, you must ensure that you've got the necessary documents in place. And I'm also talking about copies of passports. I'm talking about home contact details, home addresses. These things are vital, because at the end of the day, they could disappear tomorrow.
Exactly.
And where are you going to find them? And even a mobile number, it's not adequate, because they can just switch it off anytime they like, throw it in the bin,
the number,
and get a new
exactly.
SIM card.
Yeah.
So you need something stronger than that. And obviously, a copy of the passport is good. And as I say, along with home contact details and residential landline phone numbers as well, they're essential, because debts can travel. I mean, we do have the ability in certain countries to obviously find people, even with the very bare minimum of information. But obviously, the more information I have, the easier it will be for us to be able to chase the debt.
So it's basically tracing those debtors. As soon as you trace them and you've actually got hold of them, though, what's
Yes.
the sort of process from there then?
Well, it will vary country to country, but essentially, debts travel,
Yeah.
and there are certain laws in place to allow us to try and get that money back on behalf of our clients. Now, we're part of 3 networks, and so we cover over 100 countries, which is the major economies of the world. So we have partners everywhere.
Yeah.
So, more often than not, the people that are fleeing here are in a country that we're definitely working in. And the procedure is pretty much the same as the one that we would follow here. So, yes, as long as we have necessary information, we can chase the debt wherever it might be at the time. But please, again, advice is ensure you obtain the necessary information from the beginning. It's vital. And bearing in mind that the market is near 80% expatriate.
Exactly, yeah.
Who are you going to be dealing with? Some foreign national.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important. Very important.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for coming in today and chatting with us.
Thank you, Laura.
Well, that's it from the business desk. You can write to us, though, at news@city7tv.com. Up next, Zoe Richards is back with the news.